Okay, hey guys, we are here for the RWR Zoom, and Christine's going to lead us to talk about critiquing and what we expect from critiquing for the anthology that we're doing, and also just some tips and that we might all have that we can share about critiquing. Over to you, Christine.
Thanks, Charmaine. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. Congratulations on making it into the anthology this year. We've had a really, when you get the opportunity to read some of the stories, it's a diverse lot of different types of stories. So you're going to different genres, different ideas. It's really interesting to read them. So congratulations. Just also to Gina, who can't be here tonight, just to let her know I have had a drink for her. She asked me to do that. Yes, and before we get started, has anybody got any questions that they want to ask before we get started? No? No? Okay. All right. Did everybody get a chance to read the suggested critiquing method that I emailed you guys at all by any chance that Gina did? Yeah. It's just an outline. I mean, if you already critique in a specific way and you feel comfortable doing that, do it that way. This is just to introduce some people who don't really do a lot of critiquing. And it can be difficult to try to work out what you need to say and what not to say. I suppose there's not really too many what nots to say, but how to say that what not to say, if that makes sense. Did that confuse you all? Because it confused me. Now, I've written a few things down. There's no wrong answers. So if you're not sure at any time, if you're not sure what I'm talking about or Charmaine or anybody else is talking about, put up your hand. Nobody is in judgment of anybody because we're all learning. We all learn all the time, and I don't believe anybody knows everything about everything. So put your hand up and ask that question. It's not silly, okay? Even if you think, everybody's going to know that, ask it anyway, because some people might be sitting there going, I don't know. And then somebody asks and they're like, thank you, thank you. So do it. It's ask. Depending on your level of experience in critiquing, we use the KISS method. So does anybody know what the KISS method is? Yep. So basically we start with a compliment and we talk about the good things that we enjoy about our story that we're critiquing. We then give our questions and answers throughout the middle of it, also peppering it through with the good stuff that you like. So don't always point out the things that you don't like, point out the things that you do like. And then we finish with what you enjoyed about the whole story, the whole short story that we're working on. And
Chris, can I just say, when we talked about learning, that I'm learning that too, because I think saying what is okay in the story doesn't come naturally, because as you're reading along, you're like, yep, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Oh, I need to point out this. So I haven't pointed out, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. Yep. And then I realized that I come across as quite a harsh critiquer, because I'm only pointing out the things I'm learning, and I'm making more of an effort this year to make sure when I see that stuff is fine, I actually mention this is all working well, this is pretty good, because people don't know that's what you're thinking. So it may seem natural to you that if you haven't said anything for half a page that it's all good, but if you didn't tell them it's all good, they are only noticing where you've said there's a problem here.
That's exactly right, Charmaine. I totally agree. And also there'll be lines that stick out to you and you'll go, oh my God, that's fantastic. Write that. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Yeah. Let them know that whatever little tidbits going around in their head is perfect. And yeah, we're getting more people joining us. There's a range of Christine Betts.
I may have promised chocolate.
Emailed. God, who else is freezing at the moment? Go, Christine.
Hi.
We're just starting off with the critiquing method. We're being recorded, just to let you know. And we're just talking about the KISS method, about using the beginning to start with a really nice compliment, I suppose, about what you feel or you like about the story, and then your critique in the middle,
insult
and insults. Yeah.
No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've had them before in critique. So, and you know,
back.
that's, well, sometimes people don't hold back, and you know what, that's okay too. But if it's a new person to writing and critiquing, like, I can take that. That doesn't bother me.
I take no issue to not holding back if it's constructive.
Yeah. And that's fair enough
If it's
too.
constructive, it has to be constructive though.
Yeah. Not like, I don't like the name Lisa, so I don't know why you've used it, because I knew Lisa and I hated her.
Yeah.
So you really need to think about that.
But if there's a legitimate reason to not like Lisa for the story, then that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Especially if maybe there's another Lisa in the news that this sort of leaks up to. You could say, well, you know, I know this Lisa in the news, and maybe you shouldn't be doing that, because they'll be thinking that they can be. And you know what, they are. Well, they are at the time. And then we get it back, and these people see other things we don't, because the story's in our heads. It's not in their heads. They're reading the story as a reader, not as a writer. Well, as a writer, but they're reading the story. So you'll get other insights, as in they might pick up plot problems or plot holes, or maybe you could add this in, that type of thing. As I was saying, there's a range of critiquing styles and none are incorrect. But it's how we help writers help themselves and others. So what we're trying to do is, when we critique, I know that when I get critiqued off some people, I learn things, and I've got a book that I write down, oh my gosh, don't use thee so much, you know, or don't use which or that, or try to make the sentence longer, and that type of thing. And you learn that from people who are a little bit further along in the critiquing stage and understand that and can give you that insight. Well, write that stuff down, so next time you write the story, before you send it off, you'll go through that list and go, let's see if we can take that out, do this, or make that better or more succinct, and that type of thing. Does that make
Christine,
sense?
Do you have a preference for people doing their critiquing in track changes?
Yeah, so I've got that at the bottom, so we'll cover that in a second.
Okay.
So you know what, Charmaine? That's my next thing. Does everyone know how to use track changes in Microsoft Word? Put your hand up if you do.
Sort of.
Everybody? Yay! Now I don't have to teach it. Thank God. So if we would like to use track changes, it's the easiest for everybody to understand. What I would suggest is that when we get our critiques back, that we use somebody that you like their critique the most, and use that document to accept or decline. What's the other word? It's not accept. What is it? Reject. Accept or reject the changes that they've made. Go through the comments on the side and address that one. Don't delete the comments until you've addressed what they've said, or if you don't agree with it, delete it. I've done that before. Just delete that sucker because you don't want to see it. I would say it as the document again, but it's easier than getting 3 critiques in your one document and getting all their stuff and trying to put it all into the one document. If you work off that one document first, you're only doing 2 critiques alongside it.
Sorry, do you want us to save our critique of someone? So if I'm critiquing your document, for example, I've got Christine's story, and am I saving it as like Charmaine's critique, like crit CC?
Yeah.
Or is everyone doing their critique on the one document?
No, they're all doing it on separate documents. Yeah, that'd be too hard because you'd be waiting for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've only got 2 weeks.
And you don't have to take everyone, like every comment, you don't have to change your doc. We're not telling you have to change it from every comment. We're just saying, think about, like, read the comment and think about it. And if all three of the people critiquing yours have mentioned it, then maybe you've got to do something about it.
Have a look at it. Yeah. And I agree with that. It's a hard thing to learn sometimes, and it's a hard thing, what we call kill your babies, kill your
darlings, yeah.
Kill your darlings.
Yeah, Robert's got it.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. But sometimes just copy and paste it, put it somewhere else, use it another time, because you'll be able to use it somewhere in another story, so possibly.
So freeze your babies. No, your
freeze your babies. Freeze your babies. Freeze your doggies. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose tonight. So what you're going to do now is you've got an Excel document that you've been given, and you'll see your name, and then you'll go across the line of that Excel document and you'll see a little red hand, and those next 3 ones are the critiques you have to do. Does that make sense? Because
and that's been emailed out already.
That has been emailed out already. Yep. And
check your emails.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, check your emails. But we've had on occasion people think that they're the people who are going to critique them. It's not. They're the ones you have to critique. And when they come back, I highlight them green when their critiques have been done. So I know that everybody's got their critiques in, because everybody deserves to have a critique, all 3 of them. And eventually you're going to get 6 as well as 2 edits. So these stories should be amazing by the time we're finished. In saying that, when you've finished with your critique, or at the beginning, if you want to, I would suggest you download the document from Dropbox. Does everybody know how to do that? Yep. Okay. Download and then save it as the author's name with a hyphen, the story name with a hyphen, and then at the end, in capital letters, CRIT, as in crit, and your 2 initials. So mine would be CT, Robert's would be, well, yours is a hard one, RWE for Robert Ramsey Evans. But yeah, so you put, and that way, because it takes me a long time to change all those things when they come in, because you're looking at, what have we got, 25 stories times 3, that's 75 stories that I'd have to change if they're not done the same. So if we can, it would help me a lot if you could do that for me.
Sorry, Chris, can you just repeat that? Was it the author first?
Yes,
first, then story, then crit.
Then crit and your initials.
Initials.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Story.
And just use hyphens in between. I can't hear you, Charmaine.
What was the first bit?
So it was really interesting too. But I can't
you look like a fish. You look like a fish.
I'm the goldfish girl. So I was just going to say, the document's already saved as the author's name and the name of their story already. So all you're doing is adding the bit on the end where it's -crit, your initials.
Yeah, so it might be hard, might be difficult. And then just email it back to me, because you can't download it back into Dropbox. It won't let you. Cool.
Is that easier for you, Chris, or are you? Would you rather have access? Okay,
no, that's perfect, because I like to keep a copy of the documents in case something goes wrong with Dropbox. We're hoping it doesn't, but if in the event it does, I don't want everybody to lose all their work. So I keep it a separate copy just in case.
They won't go belly up anytime.
I just don't know.
We all pay them a lot of money.
I've had a computer go and I've lost everything before, so always back up. Always. Anyway, always. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So just a second. When updating the story, you can. Oh yeah, I just went through that. Yeah, okay. Everything that I've written down to talk to you guys about, we've gone through. So that's excellent. Is there any questions? No?
Do you want me to show the book?
Yep, okay. Charmaine's going to show you a book that we use this lady to teach critiquing as well. Is it upside down?
You've got that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But the little booklet that Gina sent out, the little green booklet, whoop, my background's doing a bad thing.
You got to
that-
put your hand.
Yeah. Well, that little booklet that I emailed out to you is actually a condensed version of the book that Charmaine's holding up. So if you want to have a look, I've also sent you out.
This is available in ebook as well if you want. I just some books I like in ebook, but I find it handy for these books to have in it. And it's not expensive at all. It's quite a cheap book. It's by Kelly Hart.
Yeah, Kelly Hart. She was one of our presenters back in the early days of Rainforest Writing Retreat.
Yeah.
A long time ago. Yeah.
And you will want to flip through to, I can even tell you the pages. So you're going to want to go straight through to page 51, how to critique. See, there's my one that you can tell that's good because I've highlighted a lot. The first half is about how to find a critique group, and you already have one. Ta-da.
If you have a look in the critiquing process that Georgina has so kindly, Gina has so kindly done for us, she actually goes over examples of critique phrases, so ways to say sentences like you have a sharp opening that draws the reader in. You know, that's a great way of letting people know that you really like the opening or the first paragraph. And she's gone through, there's a list of like 10 different examples there. She also then goes into RWR critiquing template and things for you. And I suggest have a look at that template. It's just oh God, just that. And it just goes through all the things that you should have a look at, like the opening. Does the first sentence hook the reader? There's a typo there. Do the first sentence hook the reader? Plot, does the author arrange the events for dramatic impact and suspense? So are they starting the story in the right place? Maybe start with more dramatic beginning than starting with a soft beginning, and then pepper it back to or foreshadow where you need to go. Setting, does the time, place, weather provide a clear image of the setting? I think one of my favorite ones to look at in stories when I'm reading is, are we using the 4 senses or the 5 senses? Is it 5? Yeah. Senses.
Or maybe 6 if you have an extra one.
Yeah, if you're psychic.
Not all at once, not in the one paragraph. Because think about it like in nature, at any one moment, you're using all 5 senses, but you're not really aware that you're using all of them at the same time, or your brain would fry. So you're really noticing what you smell sometimes over other things or hear. But yeah, just out of the 5 senses, pick 2 or 3 for a passage.
Yep.
So you don't like have our senses going, what we can see, what we can hear, what we can taste, what we can smell, what we can feel, it's all too much. But yeah, pick some. Yeah.
I think the biggest way that can happen, what Charmaine was just talking about, it would be in a hospital, because so many things are happening and you're hearing and you're smelling and you feel like you're tasting it on your tongue.
And if you had a character you wanted to show getting overwhelmed,
good way of
who's
showing
oversensitive to these things, then that'd be a great way to show it. But it's just in general, usually like I tell my kids, don't use taste unless it's relevant. Like they try and put taste in every scene. And you're walking through an amusement park and you don't have food and you're just following some girl you like. Taste is a weird thing to be describing at that moment. So
unless you're biting your tongue because you really like the girl in front of you, you've got blood coming or something. I agree with that. So so if you go through that, it talks about characterization, dialogue, point of view. Everybody knows what POV means. Yep. Voice and tone, pacing, conflict, proportion, too much or too little info at the beginning, middle, or end. The middle should be larger than the beginning or the end. Okay, I agree with that. Description, tell the reader the looks, smells. Oh, there you go. We just said that. Theme, central ideas. that's another thing. We need to know what the theme of the story is as close to the beginning of the story as we can get it. So this is what I'm saying about making the action happen right at the beginning. Introduce us to the problem, introduce us to the people. I think in the first scene, we need to know who they are, who the point of view is, and what's happening, because this is a short story and it's not a novel. We need to get straight on top of what we're doing straight away. I mean, you don't have to have your cliffhanger at the beginning of the story, but you know what I mean? You have to make it really interesting for the reader.
But you can do that if you want to.
Go,
we love
work
that.
backwards. Yeah, work backwards. Yeah, and that's the other thing that we are looking for, are stories that are different, stories that make readers go, oh my God, you know, like Gillian Flynn, for example. She did a story with 2 POVs, one in one chapter and one in another chapter, which totally blew my mind and gave me a headache until I got used to it. But how exciting to be able to use a different type of writing style to put forward a story from 2 different point of views in the one story. It's exciting. So if you have any different ideas like that, go for it. You know what I mean? And probably now's not the time to be changing your whole story, but you might want to change things throughout it a little bit to do some different things or different twists. As we've been saying, the ending needs to be as strong as the beginning. So that's really, really important. So it's a book, a beginning and an end, a really strong beginning. And another thing Charmaine and I really appreciate and enjoy is seeing stories mirrored from the beginning of a story to the end with the end. So if you talk about, I remember seeing a movie once and there was this dripping tap at the beginning of the movie, and I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, what the hell has this dripping tap got to do with this whole story? There was actually nothing to do with the story, but at the end, the last scene was the guy fixing the tap, and I'm like, oh my God. it was like one of those moments. But there are times where you put something in the first sentence that is foreshadowing for that last sentence, and people go, oh my God. And that's what you want. You want those oh my gosh moments, those times when you've put a twist in there that's linked to the beginning of the story, which is really cool. And you'll see that in some of these stories too that I've read. It's been amazing. So is there any questions on that so far? No, I'm not trying to teach you guys how to write, just what to look for when you're reading it as well. She's added some proofing symbols. We don't use them in this. So that's more an editor, I suppose, if you're being traditionally published and they use those symbols. So I wouldn't bother it.
I think most of that's gone out of date now anyway, from the days when we used to hand mark a lot of things.
Yeah.
And even just in the 5 years, like 5 years ago, we still use track changes, but they were still, you know, half and half. Some people were using pen and paper, but nowadays it's pretty much everyone is
Track
using
changes.
digital. So you don't need shorthand now because you're just typing.
No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and she's added some critique notes in the back there, and it sure shows you how the track changes. So, I mean, you guys can read this and you've done track changes, so you'll understand it very easily. And I think that's about. Oh yeah, okay. So something that we need to talk about, and Charmaine, if you want to talk about the Australian standard, because we want to talk about
the manual.
Yeah, something that. And it's a bit contentious, but this is how we do our anthology. And if we can all follow the same thing in this instance would be great. I mean, if you need to change it to do overseas and in the American or the UK market, that's okay. But if you guys can do it the Australian way, for us would be fantastic. And Charmaine's going to explain that to you.
Okay. So this is something I often have to explain even to English teachers. So it's okay to have not known this, but Australia and the US have different grammar rules. Obviously, most people know we have different spelling rules, but we have different grammar rules as well. And in Australia, we follow the UK grammar rules. Now, for many years, Australia has something called the Style Manual, which is brought out by the government. You don't need to buy this because you don't, like most of this is stuff you never use. But all I'm trying to say here is that when we tell you it's single quotation marks for dialogue, it's not just our preference. It is what is correct in Australia. So I don't know if the other people are doing double. I can only say they're wrong if they're doing that in Australia. So Australian grammar follows UK grammar. For dialogue, we use single quotation marks, not double. And if you do a quote within a quote, which is quite rare, but sometimes you do, it's more like academic essays where you might be quoting somebody quoting another reference, that you would do the double ones on the inside so that people can see that's a separate quote to the outside. But as I say, you might, if you had a character telling you a story that somebody told them, they might put the quotation that in. But anyway, and that we indent every line except the first line of the chapter, and then the first line of each new scene is not indented. After that, we indent. We don't do an empty space in between every paragraph line because it's annoying to have to go through and delete them when we're typesetting. So you just go to the next line, but you indent it. And I think, Christine, is it a centimetre that you use?
0.7.
0.7, yep. So indent 0.7 of a centimetre.
Does everybody know how to do that? Does everybody know how to indent?
Yeah. And it just makes the text look like the text in a novel that you'll see. And if you check novels, if you're ever unsure, just have a look in an Australian published or UK published novel, and you'll see that the first line of each scene is not indented, but then after that it is. And the purpose for it is just to make it easier for the reader's eye to see this is a new paragraph, whereas empty spaces are confusing. An empty space, one empty space line is used to show a new scene break. We don't do little pictures. Now, the pictures, the little asterisks and all that, they're not incorrect. They're just unattractive. And the psychology of reading is that for the reader, they're getting lost in your story. They're seeing the movie in their head as they read. And then suddenly when you have three little asterisks, it brings them out of it to remind them this is text on a page. So we use one empty space, which is generally used. But yes, some people like to use little bits and pieces. We don't. We prefer nice, clean read. Anything else grammar-wise you need me to?
No, what are we? I'm just looking through the dialogue tags you've done.
The stuff from here is available free online.
This is grammar. This is grammar. Ellipses.
Yeah. Just if you're looking up grammar, just check that you're checking for Australian grammar or UK grammar, because that's what we use, but not necessarily. But check that you're not getting an American website when you Google anything that you're not sure of.
Italics, Charmaine?
Well, that's a bit of a, because that's changed over the years, and Gina has a lot to say about that. So in the past, if you're doing a thought of somebody and you don't want to have to say he thought after each time he thinks something in his head, you can just put in italics, and that means what they thought. If you are putting a very technical word or a word from another language, it used to be the norm to put that in italics. It's almost now not, because we're trying to normalize language and not say this is the other language. So as long as you have a context around it so the person can work out generally what is that word means or what's being said, you don't need to italicize even other languages now. Some people still do, and it's not incorrect. It's just a trend now moving towards not italicizing technical words or other languages, because we're trying to normalize that rather than say that it's an other, you know. But yeah, that can almost be a personal preference.
Good help.
Yeah. Any other grammar questions? So yeah, and if you're not sure, the thing I find most people get a bit stuck on is dialogue. So where to put that comma is often a little bit confusing. So dialogue tag, comma, quotation marks. It comes before the quotation marks. So if what the person has said comes first, what they say, you have the comma and then you close the quotation marks. So it always comes before the quotation marks, unless you do what I prefer, rather than he said, she said, and you give the person every now and then, not for every single line, an action. And then that grounds us back to, oh yeah, they're at this place, or you have a car drive past, or you have something happen so that we're grounded and it's not just two people speaking back and forth. But anyway, it's not a writing lesson. So any questions on checking for grammar? And look, if you're not great at checking for grammar, don't worry, because someone else will also be checking for grammar and we'll be checking too. It's just if you happen to pick up stuff, you can feel free to make those changes in the document you're editing or critiquing, I should say.
You can say that in the side box anyway.
Yeah, you can.
You know,
Exactly.
you can just say, I think perhaps it could be it could be this. Maybe you want to check because you could be wrong. You could be wrong too. So you don't want to be giving wrong advice.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right. If you're not sure, you can write that. And
I've also got to say we've got I can't remember your first name. JC Leslie. What's your first name?
Janelle. Sorry, my computer was talking. Janelle.
Janelle. Sorry, Janelle. It left me for a second. Janelle actually uses double speech marks because her computer program, it's the only way her computer program will pick it up. So if you guys can remember that when you're critiquing her story, and then when it comes back in the end, I'll fix all those speech tags. Oh dear. All right, ladies. Happy to call it a night.
Thank you.
An early mark, and we'll get back together again in a couple of weeks.
yeah.
Okay, Chris. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Everybody.